Catherine's Crafty History channel.
Hello, welcome to Catherine's Crafty History. My name is Catherine and I am a Blue Badge tour guide. Now that means that usually I spend my days taking families around all the different historical sites in London and the surrounding area. But because of this funny world that we're living in at the moment, where we can't go outside, go to school, see our friends or go on holiday, I thought it would be fun to bring historical sites and historical Britain to you at home, along with a fun craft to do as well. So today we're going to be starting with the Stone Age. Now this began in Britain around 12,000 years ago, so a long time ago. And this Stone Age is divided into three periods. Now the first two, the people who lived in Britain were known as hunter-gatherers. This means that they would go hunting, they would set up camp, they would move on quickly. They had no base. You can call them their nomadic people because they didn't have any set home. Now things started to change in around 4000 BC. So that means around 6,000 years ago, because we entered into the third period of the Stone Age. It was known as the Neolithic era. Now why Neolithic? Let's break that word down. Neo means new and lithic means stone. So this new stone era. And now the reason it was new is because people didn't want to be hunter-gatherers anymore. They wanted a more solid home. Now they started to create settlements. And these settlements are now what we know as villages. And then later, because the population has grown so much, they've become towns and now cities. Not only that, but they started to use the land. They started to farm it and grow crops. Despite all this, it was still a very simple time. There was no electricity, no cars, no supermarkets, so they still had to hunt for their meat. Now, what they did have a lot of, as the name suggests, was stone. And one stone in particular that was really handy for the Neolithic people was flint. Now flint, there's lots of this in Britain, and the good thing about flint is that it can be hit in a certain way and you can see, if you look closely, how sharp it is. And now this stone and this flint was used for all sorts of things, from tools so that they could build their homes, they could chop wood, they could make it into an axe perhaps, but also it was very handy for making weapons. So they could cut it in a certain way and create this very hard edge, either serrated or very sharp, and then attach it to a piece of wood, and then instantly it would become a spear. So the craft today is going to be a Neolithic home. And you might have noticed, joining me here, this is what we're going to be creating. Now, just have a look at it. What did they make it out of? Well, one thing to know is that where there is flint, you're going to find something called chalk. And chalk is this white substance, which is why we're going to be creating white walls for our homes. So they would use wood for the frame, and then they would cover it in chalk, and also have a chalk base as well. Now this would be good because you can see the white colour would make it nice and light. Now in their home, they just have one doorway and they would have their fire inside. Now their fire is very important. They'd use that for cooking, for keeping warm. And what was very cleverly happened, the smoke, you might imagine, oh, with only one doorway, oh, it would be very smoky, but it wasn't, because the smoke would come out of the roof. Now the roof is what we call a thatched roof. There were all sorts of things made of straw, made of reeds, thrushes, that they could weave together, and the smoke could sort of just come out of the roof very cleverly, rather than it being all horrible and smoky inside. So with that in mind, we're now going to make our Neolithic house. Remember this list that we saw at the beginning? If you haven't gathered the things we're going to need for the craft, now is a great time to do so. So hopefully you have everything you need to make our Neolithic house. First of all, grab your piece of cardboard. I've used an old cereal box, and we're going to make the base of the house. Now grab your ruler also, and it's 7 centimeters high. So do a little dot at 7 centimeters, and then lengthwise, I've worked out about 24 centimeters. 24, 25 centimeters, anything around that works great. Then you want to cut that out so you get something like this nice rectangle here. Now take your pen and about halfway along, draw a doorway. Okay, cut that out so you have something that looks like this. Now we're going to make the body of this house. Right, turn it upside down and you're going to curl the two ends to make a circular shape, a cylinder it's known as. And then grab your piece of sellotape or sticky tape, whatever you call it, and add it together, and then it will be able to stand up like that. I'll just put that to one side for the moment, and now we're going to make the white to make it go around it. Remember, chalk is white, so grab your white piece of paper, and again you want to make it 7 centimeters high, so grab your pen and your ruler and do a dot and just do a line across. You don't need to be so strict with the length here. I'm just doing it the length of my A4 piece of paper because it can just wrap around each other. So once you've done that, cut it out and then you'll have something like this. Now again, you want your doorway so they can actually get in, the Neolithic people. So about halfway around, draw your doorway again and cut that out. So here we have it. We have our standing house and we have our white chalk with the doorway as well. So put it on its side and you want to match up the doorway or the two doorways like this and sellotape the top of the white and the house together like that. So then it creates a sort of bird, can flap the wings, but we don't want it flapping around, so then immediately curl these white pieces of paper. Look, you can see it overlaps and sellotape it. So there we have that. You can stand up and then we start to see our house coming together. Now we're going to work on the roof. So put that to one side and grab the remaining part of our A4 piece of paper. Now this bit's a bit tricky. I want you to grab each corner of the piece of paper, the corners furthest away from you, and curl them into each other until you make a nice sort of triangle shape at the two sides, there and there, and sellotape the fold like this and turn it over and grab your pen again because we want to make a nice cone shape. So make a sort of smiley face shape and you want about 1 centimetre or so from the flat piece of your triangle. And once you've done that sort of smiley face, so something like that, and cut it out ready. So once you've cut it out, it will look something like this, and you can see if you can make it into a cone shape like this. However, just to say, if you didn't manage to find any straws or twigs, doesn't matter. You might want to just colour in your roof. And so I suggest that this is a good point to start colouring it in because it's flat and it makes it easier to do that. However, if you have found some things, at this point I would attach your roof to your house. So grab your house and place it on top. Now, just to make life easier for us when we're sticking, I'm going to sellotape the roof on to the base of the house. One end and the other. There we go. So it looks like this, standing like that. And so now the fun bit starts. You can grab your paintbrush with the PVA glue and literally you can just start painting it on. Do little strips at a time, I would. And you grab your straw like this and you can start attaching it. Just to quickly say, another idea, if you again couldn't find the straw, what you could do, you could grab a piece of cardboard that you don't need, and you can just cut them into tiny strips, and so you get things like this. So then you can stick them all the way around too, and depending on what colour it is, you could colour it in as well to get that thatch look. So there's all sorts of ideas that you can do. But then once you've done that, you've done it all the way around, you'll get something that looks like this. And you can make lots of them and create your own little Neolithic settlement. So I hope you've enjoyed the craft, which has been all about the Neolithic period. For an extra treat, if you want to come join me in the garden, I've actually created something that's one of the most important monuments made by the Neolithic people, which is found in the south of England. It's called Stonehenge. So if you fancy a little extra history burst, come with me now and we'll take a look.
Hi everyone, welcome to the garden. Just to say, as we are outside, be prepared to hear all sorts of noises. I have 3 geese who live in my garden, so listen out for them, just to add to the fun. So here we are at the model of Stonehenge. Now the real Stonehenge is found in the south of England in a county called Wiltshire. But as we can't get there at the moment, let's take a look at what I've created. So what is Stonehenge? Well, a henge, if we break up the word, a henge is a circular ditch. And you can see this soil bit here going all the way around. This is the oldest part of Stonehenge. It was created around 3000 BC, so that's over 5,000 years ago. And we know this because the Neolithic people, they came along and they dug with all sorts of things like stones, bones, antlers. Remember, this is the Stone Age, so there's no heavy machinery going on. And these things that they've left behind, they've been taken to the lab, and these clever scientists have done these tests called carbon dating. And from that, they're able to understand when these animals lived. So around 3000 BC. Now, the concept of Stonehenge took hundreds of years. And it was around 400 years later that the stones actually arrived. And if you look closely here, here is this stone circle. Now, there are lots of stone circles in the world, but what makes Stonehenge so special is the stones themselves, because these stones have been dressed. That means they have been polished and shaped. And they've been shaped using other stones, stone against stone, in order to make it nice and smooth. And they've also been shaped into these special archways. Can you see here? We call these trilithons here. This archway with these big 5 of them. There is one in particular stone that has not been dressed. He's undressed. How rude. It's here. This special stone, one of the most important of them all, the heel stone. So that's why Stonehenge in particular is so important. Now let's understand a little bit more about these stones. Where do they come from? Well, these smaller stones that you see here, They are called bluestones, and they came all the way from Wales. Now, those of you who may not know the map of the UK, that's over 150 miles. Not only were there no heavy machinery, but there were no cars, there were no cranes. So we're going to understand a little bit later how we believe they would have travelled over 150 miles all the way to here in Wiltshire. They also, not only that, they weigh a lot. These little ones, they weigh 4 tons. That is the weight of a hippo. Can you imagine trying to carry a hippo? Near impossible, I would think. What makes it even more amazing is that these bigger stones, remember I said there are 2 kinds of stone, these bigger ones going all the way round, and these trilithons, these archway-like ones, they're called sarsens. They came from around 19 miles away, and they weigh even more. Being much bigger stones, they weighed on average around 25 tons. So that's imagining you're carrying about 7 hippos. So this little model here is trying to understand how they moved these heavy stones either over 150 miles or around 20 miles. Well, we believe they would have cut down trees. And now the trees, the good thing about them is that they're round, and so they're acting as rollers. So you'd have these people at the front hauling the big stone, and then this man at the back who's picking, every time they haul it, they pick up the big tree trunk and they bring it back, and then they're using the rolling and they can pull it a bit longer, and then, oh, you see that sort of rolling action? It's kind of hard with these because they're not exactly round, and then this is now loose, and so they would haul it up and then bring it back, and that is how we believe they would move them across land. So first of all, they would have dug a hole, my little person helping me here. You can just stand and watch. Now, making sure there was a sort of slope on one side, so then they could heave this, and it could be a bit like a slide, could slide into place like that, okay? So he can stay there. Then, my 2 friends over here, they would take this and wrap it round. And then heaving from the bottom, they would heave it into position. Then my friend over here would quickly ram it around, grabbing the soil and the rubble and packing it into position and patting it down so it was nice and secure. You can hold it up like that, and then these guys would drop that, and moment of truth, woo, yes, and then they would move these pieces of wood, and it would be in position and make it even more secure with soil. The thing that's clever about Stonehenge is that it's one big puzzle, because remember we saw you had the uprights with the balancing stones on top, and also those trilithons, the 3 stones grouped together. Well, the balancing ones on top, they're not balancing. In fact, look, in one of them, in the stone sitting on top, it's got a hole in it. This is called a mortise. And on the other stones, you've got these sort of nodules coming up here. This is a tenon. And what they would have done, they would have slotted it like a jigsaw into place. And that's why we have, even after 5,000 years, some stones still are standing upright as they were when they were built. Just to quickly say, a question you might be wondering is why does it exist? It's hard to know for sure, but a high possibility is that it had connections to the sun. And this is thanks to, particularly to do with this heel stone, remember the undressed stone. And if you're really interested, I can make another video of trying to explain how the sun works in relation to Stonehenge. But for now, what we're really focusing on is the people of the Neolithic era and how they created it.
So I hope you've enjoyed my video today, all about the Neolithic period, and I hope to see you next time where we're going to be looking at Roman London. See you then! Bye!
Catherine's Crafty History Channel.